right. We are going to get things started by bringing up our first comedian of the evening. Please welcome co-founder of NY Groove and Vocabulary, which takes place right here at this theater, Tim Donnelly!
You have to pay a toll when you come out. Normally I would be on a bicycle and I wouldn't be paying a toll, but for this.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me, yes. I am the co-founder of a website called the New York Groove. We do local journalism. And for that website a couple weeks ago, I went on an assignment for something that is relevant to what we're talking about here, monuments. And I was going to cover a protest in Astoria, Queens, outside of the office of one man named Zoran Mamdani. And the protest looked a little bit like this, okay? We got this sort of action going on here, you know, a lot of real happy-looking people. And, you know, people like this, you know, you get the kind of vibe, right? What they were protesting was serious. It was a social media message from 5 years ago on Twitter, which kind of doesn't really exist anymore. And let me just show it to you so you can see what I'm talking about. They were protesting this, which is Zoran Mamdani saying, take it down, and this is the Astoria statue of Christopher Columbus, and he's giving him the finger. And they said that this is anti-Italian discrimination, and so they wanted to go, I'm not making a joke, that is what they said. And they wanted to go protest it and say that, you know, this isn't good for Italians. Even though I am under the understanding that Republicans usually like to give the middle finger to authority, but in this case, they were not into it. So they were met, but they were not alone. There was a counter-protest there organized loosely by Italians for Zoran. And they showed up there to kind of be like, these Italians don't speak for us. We don't give a shit about Christopher Columbus. So they showed up with their own protests and signs, and they looked a little bit like this. You got some good, right for the jugular here. I'll move so everybody can see it. Some pretty good signs, I'll zoom in on a couple here. You know, you got this one here, which I learned is the correct Italian way to say vaffanculo, which is go fuck yourself. Couple here, Columbus is worse than pineapple on pizza. Your mom's a Protestant. At one point, they were all chanting, you break pasta, which is definitely a thing I knew you're not supposed to do. But the Columbus issue comes up every couple years in conversations in the city about why do we still have these statues of Columbus? And it's not just the one in Astoria. There is, of course, a couple more. There's the one in Central Park, famously. I assume that it was put there to keep on the legacy of Columbus displacing native people, because Columbus Park was, of course, built on Seneca Village, which was a place where black and immigrant New Yorkers lived, and they got moved out so that people can walk their dogs in strollers from 86th Street. Eventually, yeah. And then, of course, there is the Columbus statue in Columbus Circle, which I believe is signifying the time that white people discovered the concept of Whole Foods. There's Columbus Park in Brooklyn, where they do the Brooklyn Book Festival, and outside of Borough Hall, so there's the statue there. And this, I assume, was in honor of his, history as a genocidal person, which was carried on later by Eric Adams' genocide against rats, in which he dipped them into toxic soup. This is when he was borough president, not mayor, but we should have known. And then, of course, actually pretty close to here, there's Columbus Park, Manhattan, in which the middle of it is a very large statue of this Chinese revolutionary, okay? And even though it has the name Columbus Park and doesn't have the statue, the Parks Department points out that, it was named after Columbus, the Italian explorer who discovered America. But, they know there's a controversy, okay, at the Parks Department. They hedge this a little. They say, he discovered America, or, at least with awakening Europe to the opportunities there. All right? They've gone full woke, all right? So, why is it so important that we have the statue of Columbus? The concept is that Columbus is an Italian explorer who discovered America. So let's take a quick look at this claim and see why these right-wing Italians are just hanging so much on it. So, was he an Italian explorer who discovered America? Well, for the first point, He wasn't Italian, all right? Let's just get right to it. He was not Italian in any sense of the word. Italy wasn't unified until 1861, and he was from Genoa, but people actually think that he was maybe from Spain or even Portugal. And he sailed for the Spanish crown, but he was certainly not, Italian American by any point of, by any stretch of the imagination. So, okay, strike against that. Italian who discovered America. Second point, he didn't do that shit. Let's be honest. That's not what he did. And then third point, he's not a New Yorker. Why are we looking at him? Why are we have to see him staring down at us when we come out of the Whole Foods, all right? So there's a lot of things here that maybe we could reconsider, why we have it. Now, people came to the protest, to the counter-protest, with some suggestions of other people that you can vilify, or not vilify, you can celebrate instead of Columbus. So here's an example and a sign here. We've got a couple options here. Frank Sinatra, Lady Gaga, Johnny Bravo, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Marion Luigi, and some of these are even real people. Now, I talked to a couple other people at the protest for other ideas. So we have some other ideas that people said. Martin Scorsese, Joe DiMaggio, of course. People recommended Connie Francis, who just died. Mother Cabrini, First American Saint. She comes up a lot. Good options. I might also throw in feral teen Kate Mooney, who we're going to see later, who is noted Italian-American. And there were lots of things out there that are other options, basically, that people can do. So why are people so hung up? Oh, and then there was one other option that made it into the headline of the piece that we wrote, which is that literally at one point everyone was just chanting, Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito. All right. Not a New Yorker, but a New Jersey man with lots of ties to New York, and a trash man, but not a trash man, right? Like not a trash man, but not a trash man. So there's lots of other people that we could make statues of, basically. And I wanted to ask people, why are these right-wing people so hung up on Columbus? Like, this is the hill you're going to die on? And I talked to one of the people at the counter-protest there, and he said, look, I was raised Italian in the suburbs of New York, and I have all that misogyny and ass slapping and saying the R word in my family, and it took me a lot of time to get it out of there. And I moved back to the city. I was around other people. Being around diversity really helps. And I asked him if he had kind of any advice for people to get over it, and he just said this thing that he left me on, and I'll leave you on. If all my paisans just went to therapy, we'd be great. Right? Thank you, guys.
Here's Donnelly, everybody.